mainstream. I'm Simran Shiwalkwar, your host for today, and we are here at UnSummit brought to you by Securonix, where conversations around modern security operations are taking the center stage. I am joined by Mr. Ajay Byani. Firstly, Ajay, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me take a moment to share a few things about Ajay. To begin with, he is the Senior Vice President for APJ at Securonix, a leader who operates at the intersection of strategy, execution, customer advocacy, and market evangelism. He also works closely with customers, partners, and teams across the region to drive growth, strengthen security outcomes, and also shape conversations around the future of security operations. Ajay, firstly, thank you once again, and let's start from the ground up. Let's begin with your journey. You have been leading this ecosystem for quite some time now, and of course, now with Securonix. Can you share something about it and maybe give us a glimpse?
Yeah. So it's about 21 years in cybersecurity overall. Started hands-on just out of the college. I studied in Mumbai University, did my engineering in electronics and telecommunication, got placed into Tech Mahindra. So it was coincidental that I was put into e-security, we used to call it at that time. Now it's obviously cybersecurity that we call it out. So started from pretty much hands-on background, deployed some of the largest identity and access management projects in India and Middle East, in UAE, and ultimately moved to UK for a while, and then settled into Singapore. And during those last 21 years, I've been with system integrators like Tech Mahindra and Wipro. I've worked with large MSSP and telcos like Verizon, and then ultimately over the last 11 years, I've been with startups. First one was Fordrock, and the latest one is Securonix, which I've been here about almost 4 years now. Obviously, cyber is something that I've learned hands-on. I learned my CISSP, CISM over the course of the journey. But at some point, I realized that it's not just about doing hands-on work. It's also about building businesses which help end customers and partners solve cyber problems. That's where I get the maximum, And I like doing it for my customers and partners. So decided to join startups about 11 years back. This is my second startup. We are a small team, relatively, to the business that we run. But ultimately, the problems that we are solving at scale for some of our largest and most complex customers is what is driving and is my passion, solving those cyber issues.
Super. Thank you once again for giving us a glimpse of this wonderful journey, Ajay. And thank you so much. More than a decade indeed. And with that, Securonix has been quite a player in the security space. When you talk about rethinking the SOC, what does that shift really mean for enterprises today? Especially with AI coming into the picture, what has been your observation?
So the world has changed, right? We had a few key milestones, in the last, let's say, 2 decades or so. So enterprises initially went to the data centers, they started hosting things themselves. Then came the SaaS, wave. Then when everything was moving into, infrastructure provider like Amazon and Google and Microsoft. And then, post-COVID, everything became online. Everybody's working hybrid. So during these various phases, the journey has been there's a change in the way enterprises are operating. Right? Their employees, their contractors, their supply chain has changed completely. So if you look at enterprises today, a lot of people are working hybrid. Sometimes they are in office, sometimes they're working remotely. The boundary or the perimeter has diminished, right? Your user, their identity is the boundary that you're working with. What that has done to enterprises is they no longer have the advantage of confining people in an office with a boundary where they can or they need to protect. Now what they have to do is they have to be agile. They have to make sure that as the user is moving, from their home to office to a partner location, they have to protect that user's identity as that. The other thing that enterprises are facing today is the AI. Right. AI is obviously equipping the attackers more than the defenders, and that's where we are playing a role, making it level, if not better. But enterprises at the moment are struggling with internal users who is using AI, attackers using AI, misuse of credentials, identity theft, abnormal behavior, a normal user doing things that they were not supposed to do because of privilege escalation. All these complex gamut of attacks and attack surface area that has expanded since COVID is leading into more and more complex use cases to solve at scale, where cyber skills are always, short than what we want. So we see AI and skill shortage as two biggest problems that enterprises are facing as they are going through a big journey of transformation and moving more digital and less on-site and on-prem.
Perfect. And speaking of which, you have spoken volumes about staying ahead of market shifts and leading with insight. How are AI analytics and real-time intelligence, kind of changing this shift, the way security teams approach detection? We talk about attacks happening, on the insider level as well.
Yeah. So traditionally, historically, when we looked at SOC and the way SIEM used to work, it was rule based, right? You define a rule. Every time you find a new combination of problem, a new signature of an attack, you create a rule. Manual. But now, as you saw, AI is being used to create malware, phishing attacks, etc. The speed at which you have to create rule is humanly not possible, right? So if you look at the SOC that is running within an enterprise and the kind of work they have to do, behavioral analytics becomes the basic building block. So if you understand the user's behavior, daily what he or she does, 9 to 6, what systems they access, what generally they do, what are their activities, how much data they download, how much data they email, if at all they're emailing externally. That behavior baseline pattern helps you understand if something is going wrong today in this moment. So you compare the baseline with what user is doing today, and then accordingly take a decision in real time whether this is good or bad behavior. And basis that behavior, you try and correlate with the things that this person has been doing, like what device they are using, which location they are coming from, the system that they are accessing. Is it a system that they generally access, or is it something, an outlier? So knowing the pattern, knowing what the user is doing today, contextualizing everything, and then taking a decision in that split moment whether this is good or bad to basically trigger the next set of actions, which could be, saying this is bad, we should stop it immediately, or this looks suspicious, maybe we should investigate further and alert a particular team or a segment, HR, IT, etc. Or we basically just, move them to a honeypot environment where we want to observe what this user is doing so that our cyber teams can learn from it, right? So there are various factors and various ways, the use cases have changed, but behavioral analytics has become the building block of a cyber program, we call it. For any company to be cyber resilient, you have to have a behavioral analytics and baseline modeling piece.
Super. And along those lines, you have been communicating with a lot of leaders across Asia, across India as well. From your observation, what are some of the maybe roadblocks that these leaders or their enterprises are kind of facing when it comes to adopting new strategy or any new tools or solutions?
So we have lots of tools. That's the first thing, right? Any typical enterprise you go, they have anywhere between 25 to 50 cyber tools. Just talking about cyber purely. So your EDRs, your NDRs, your IDS, IPS, IM solutions, SIM, UEBA, source solution, you name it, right? Now we have the CNAP solutions, the data security posture management solution, you name it, right? So 25 to 50 tools.
Right.
During COVID time frame, a lot of investment was made in the spirit of protecting the organization better as the boundary was diminishing and moving out, right? Now, what we are seeing is the CISOs are getting questioned by the board. Okay, we made all this investment. What is the ROI? How much is the ROI? The business part of it, right? Because you're spending X, what is the return you're getting, in terms of Y? And is Y more than X? Is it really worth spending this much money? Or are we better off buying a cyber insurance and pay the premium?
Yes.
So they're getting questioned by the board on showcasing the ROI. Another thing which we see very actively being questioned and asked of CISOs is, okay, show me a layman dashboard of how many attacks happened, how many were detected successfully, how many we failed, and if we failed, how we are going to make sure that we don't fail again, right? When this happens. So visibility and reporting to the board level in the simplest form is something that every CISO is working on and is trying to solve.
Right.
And lastly, they are getting questioned that do we have the right skills and can we scale as we are growing our digital footprint? Do we have enough capacity available to meet the requirement of the growth that we have to factor in our business and our digital aspirations, right? So these are some of the top of the minds conversations that we see. Obviously, AI is always there. The board is questioning how much AI are we using to build, to protect, and to grow our business. And are we in good hands? Is the AI not going off and do we have the guardrails, right? Those are the main conversations that we see.
Fantastic. And when we talk about AI or automation for that matter, how important is the balance between human expertise and AI-driven securities? Do you think there is a balance required for enterprises indeed?
Absolutely, because if you leave everything to AI, it can go off. It can go off. We have seen, like very recently, there was a news: a company's entire database was wiped out by AI in 9 seconds. You don't want that to happen, right? Like if somebody is taking, especially AI, through the automation and the setup that you have done, it's taking an extreme step, like wiping out data, deleting some information. You would want a human to validate and approve that before it really happens, because Otherwise, recouping from that loss can be like costing you your business, right? So we see that while the AI adoption is there, but the risk is even bigger, right? With leaving everything in the hands of AI. So human supervision and human oversight is definitely a must. We have not reached a level where we can absolutely feel confident of AI doing the right things always. You include into that hallucination issues, include into that like poisoned large language model and so on and so forth. So I think there is a long way to go there in terms of completely giving control to AI. So at this point, the way we have built our platform, there's always a human oversight option available. So you can choose to completely automate or you can choose to give it to a human to take the final decision. And I think that's a safer way of dealing with AI and implementing it while taking the advantage of the technology. You're not absolutely exposing yourself and taking unnecessary risk, in my opinion. So we are from the school where we would say that have a human oversight, let the human take the final decision before something catastrophic happens or you are taking an extreme step.
So it would be safe to assume that in the near future, SOC wouldn't be completely autonomous. It would be human.
It will be
At some point.
semi autonomous, and there will be some humans needed. But at the same time, right? Like if you were running a SOC with 40 people, for example, for a large enterprise, you probably can free up about 20 to work on more advanced threat hunting, which by the way they also like, because one of the things we have heard from enterprises and bigger partners is the SOC analysts, especially who are doing L1 L2 work, get bored because it's too much manual work, it's too much false positives. They get drowned into it, they get frustrated and they leave. Right? But with AI, you can take care of those L1, L2 type of issues, reduce false positives, increase true positives, which can be then better threat hunted by the experts, right? So your L1, L2 becomes L3. Your AI is taking out the noise, it's reducing the work manually that people used to do. But at the same time, whatever work users are doing after that is more quality and it gives them more, recognition in terms of hunting the real threats and not wasting time. So we see that as a shift and ultimately helping the organization reducing the size of the SOC team, but focusing more on quality than quantity.
Fantastic. I think we've spoken about almost everything, right? From balancing between human-led operations and AI to, of course, the challenges enterprises and leaders are facing. I want to understand from you, Ajay, what is next for Securonix? What is the larger vision?
Yeah. So our vision is to build an autonomous AI-based SOC which can be trusted to do everything end to end. And there has to be a manual kill switch, right, which you can, invoke when it's needed. We are deeply investing into our R&D efforts to make AI better. We have built about 8 AI agents and they work through a concept called Securonix Agentic Mesh, SAM, which means agents talk to each other, work with each other, operate each other to increase, true positive detection and reduce false positive detections. We are already on that journey. We have created Agentic Mesh, we have created agents, we have created some feature functionalities called Data Pipeline Manager, which essentially helps the CISO manage the ingestion, which is increasing daily, in the same cost. So you can do 2 to 3x of ingestion, which is our core metrics of utilization, in the same amount of money that you're spending instead of getting worried about dropping logs or missing out on detections. So we have already invested into it. We are taking it to the next level. Now we are building an AI agent which will recommend what data should go through full analytics tier in the data pipeline management, what should just be stored as a basic log for audit purposes, and what should go through an investigation tier. So our focus is more on doing more R&D and research and coming up with more agents which can help build a true autonomous SOC which works in a trustworthy way. We are also looking at adjacent technologies. So we acquired Threat Quotient last year, which is a threat intelligence platform. Because in SOC you have various technologies ultimately you need. So while we are trying to reduce the number of tech you need in as many like providers as you can, but at the same time we know we need to do threat intelligence, we need to do some other things which are near and dear to a SOC operation to work. So our focus is looking at adjacent technologies and acquire few companies to make it a full platform which our end customers and partners can take advantage of. So more investment in AI, more R&D on that front, making it more optimized, and maybe looking at adjacent technologies to acquire and integrate.
Fantastic, and thank you so much for sharing that with us today. Well, before we wrap up, I also have a couple of rapid fire questions for you. Basically, anything that comes to your mind first. You ready?
Sure, ready.
Let's go. One word that will define the future of cybersecurity for the next few years.
Cyber resilience.
Okay. A cybersecurity buzzword you would get rid of immediately.
Modernization.
One trend people are overhyping right now.
AI for security.
Okay. If not tech, if not cybersecurity, what industry would you like to explore?
Cricket, sports.
Okay. And lastly, what is your go-to mantra or a way to unwind after a long, tiring day?
Obviously, I listen to some music and I play cricket if I get time.
Very interesting. Thank you so much, Ajay. This was very candid and very insightful, and I look forward to connect with you again.
Thank you so much, man.
Thank
Cheers.
you.